Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. I was just watching a video where there was a shootout or a comparison of an $80,000 Arri, I think it was Alexa video camera, or Arri, I don't know how you pronounce that, versus a Canon 80D. And as you would expect, the Arri did better, but the Canon 80D was no slouch. And it's got me to thinking. I'd done a video a while back about how you can make your video look better, and basically, tips to get the best out of your video. Because especially in a situation like if you're shooting on YouTube, something like an Arri is not necessary. You don't need an $80,000 camera, and we'll get into it more in the video. But let's discuss it right here. Of note here, there was a video done by Tim Ferriss, and I'm a huge fan of Tim Ferriss. If you don't know Tim, he's got the most amazing podcast out there. Incredible author. Tools of Titans is one of my favorite books of all time. I'll put a link below. You can check it out. But he also wrote The 4-Hour Work Week, The 4-Hour Body, The 4-Hour Chef, and he's got a brand new one coming out. It's kind of a follow-up to Tools of Titans, and I've already pre-ordered it. I'm a huge Tim Ferriss fan. Can't say enough good about him. He'll change your life, literally, and that is no exaggeration. Anyways, he had made the point that he'd done a video on YouTube with a full production crew. He'd spent quite a bit of money and done a full-blown, really slick production. And then he'd done another one where basically, I think it was his brother-in-law or a friend was just holding a handy cam and shooting it just very, like, you might see your neighbor out filming his kid or something. Very low production, low budget, very simple, and not even, I think, admittedly, Tim said probably nothing like the quality, obviously, of the full production. The interesting thing was that the one shot with the handy cam did way better on YouTube in the sense of more views and things like that. And his thoughts on it were that the authenticity of it, the fact that it looked more like reality TV, was more impactful, or had a greater impact than spending all that money on a full production crew. So I guess what I'm getting at there is that content is king anywhere, especially on YouTube. So if your content's good, I'm not saying don't do the best you can for production. Got a fly going around in here. The best you can for production. Do the best you can. Certainly do that. But is it necessary to get an $80,000 camera? No. And there we go, long segue into some tips to get the best out of, let's say you're shooting a DSLR. Let's cap this to DSLRs. Some of it will be applicable to any video. But for DSLRs, how can you get the best out of your DSLR to make it closer to, especially maybe on YouTube, maybe even indistinguishable from what you could get out of an $80,000 Arri Alexa or Arri Alexa, however you say that. First up, and some people have thought of this, to some people it comes as no surprise, some people maybe not. Lighting. Lighting is everything. It's pretty much the same for photography too, for photography and videography. How you light something can make the video, basically the camera you're using, almost inconsequential. If you have a certain level of competence in your camera, if your camera has a certain amount of specs to get, is capable of a fairly decent recording, add the lighting in and learn to light something properly, and all of a sudden you're going to bring up the quality of your video by leaps and bounds. Far more in a lot of situations than if you just had bought a more expensive camera. The lighting at most of the time a much lower cost, because you can do a lot of DIY lighting. I mean, I'm lighting myself right here with a couple of vertical LED shop lights. It works very nice. It's kind of butterfly lighting, as you were, clamshell, depending on which way you want to look at that. And then, so if you learn your lighting and you take the time to learn your lighting and figure that out, you're going to find that you get a much better quality video from the same camera. I would take a well-lit, well-shot video from an 80D over a poorly lit, poorly shot video out of an $80,000 camera any day. So lighting can be done very inexpensively, and if you take the time, to learn it, even just some quick tips that you go and you figure out can make all the difference in the quality coming out of your DSLR video. Next up, and secondary, maybe not even secondary. I don't know if which one I'd put 1 and which one I'd put 2, but audio. Audio. A lot of times people will overlook the quality of a video visually when the audio sounds really good. I'm using an AT2020 Audio Technica mic here, which is an XLR mic piped into a Zoom H4, piped into the camera. And you don't have to pipe it into the camera. It just makes one less step for editing. But you could take the audio out of the Zoom, which provides for very good control over the audio instead of just using the camera's onboard audio processors, which in a lot of DSLRs are not stellar. But that little Zoom, which you can pick up for under a couple $100, does very, very good quality recording and gives you quite a bit of control that you don't get in the camera. So for a fairly inexpensive mic and a fairly inexpensive recorder, you can really up the quality of your video recording by making your audio sound way better. And I think you'll find that may even be more important than to deal with that first than dealing with the quality of your video first. I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying, if you do your lighting and your audio, your video quality is going to go up by leaps and bounds. But I've often seen, I think a lot of us are used to seeing video that it maybe isn't the best visually, but the audio sounds great, and you almost don't notice it sometimes because the audio is so good. Bad audio I tend to pick up on very quickly and won't put up with as much. I have lower tolerance for that than I do in this bugs flying around in the office here. Time of year, I guess, eh? We've had this heat burst. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, audio. Make sure you look at your audio, because improvements in your audio, again, at a very low cost. You don't even have to go to this level to get better audio, but for a few $100s, you can do something similar to what I'm doing, AT2020 with a Zoom H4. Perspective's another thing you can do. What angle are you shooting at? This basically is no cost to you. I guess I would throw in with perspective, maybe I would put that hand in hand with a tripod, because a lot of times a tripod is going to make a big difference, especially versus handheld shooting if you don't have image stabilization. But the angle you're shooting at, and whether you're up, down, whatever, if you're playing with that and getting creative, it can be much more interesting visually than if you're just, this is fairly straight on. But if I was shooting a movie scene or something, if I'm doing my own movies, then you're going to want to play with the angles and the looks. I mean, when you watch videos and you watch them with an eye to how it was shot, I shouldn't say when you watch videos, but when you watch movies, you'll see that the more interesting stuff is shot from very different perspectives and angles. So try experimenting with that. Try doing some learning as far as watching stuff and seeing how it's done when you really like a scene, and then experimenting with it yourself. You'll find that is a no-cost thing you can do to make your video look better. Next up, lenses. Faster lenses are better. Let's just go right out. Faster lenses are better. I shouldn't say faster lenses are better. Faster and sharper lenses are better. And usually when you're getting a faster lens, you're often getting a better performing lens for sharpness as well. So a sharper lens is going to give you sharper, more detailed video. A faster lens is going to give you the ability to shoot at lower ISOs at a given light level, and therefore you can get better video quality because you don't have as much graininess in. You can also, with a faster lens, is something as simple as a 50mm f1.8 STM on the Canon side or a 50mm f1.8G on the Nikon side. You can isolate your subject with depth of field. You're shooting at f1.8, you can blow out your backgrounds. You can make that very visually appealing, very visually interesting. You can shoot just about anywhere and make the background not a distraction or more interesting looking because you're blowing it out, as it were. We say blowing it out, meaning it's out of focus. And then the better lenses obviously are going to have better bokeh for that, or bokeh, depending on how you want to say that. I think bokeh is what generally my audience prefers how we say it, and I think that's the correct term from Japan. Anyways, I digress. The quality of the out of focus area of the lens. So you're going to want to, the 50s, I mentioned that, especially on the Canon side, the 50mm f1.8 STM is one of the cheapest, best ways you can go to. If you had an 80D, I always say that's the second lens you should buy. You should have your standard zoom and a 58 f1.8 STM. So check it out. Next up would be the back end, the post-processing. And that's just kind of you learning to edit and grade. The better editing, the better grading, you can make up a lot in quality and get a lot better as you learn. Sometimes it's a steep learning curve, but the more you can tweak that, if you want to get into some really fancy stuff, you can shoot in, flatter profiles and do a lot of the grading later, and you can really close that gap between, $1,000 80D DSLR and an $80,000 Arri Alexa. You're going to find that if you've got good skills in your post editing, you can really close up some gap between those and make it a lot less noticeable. You can get a lot more punch, a lot more quality, a lot better look out of your DSLR video, such as an 80D or something out of say the D7500 or any of the Panasonics, all these cameras that you could use at a much better price than owning an $80,000 Arri. And lastly, what I would throw in there is, it seems kind of a no-brainer. It seems like you wouldn't think about it, but some people might not, and that's to shoot at your highest quality video setting. Don't be having your video setting lower than what the camera is capable of. Shoot at the maximum quality your camera can shoot at, because it's always better in post. If you want to dumb it down, you can, but if it was something that was important later and you found you're going back and you're like, darn it, I didn't shoot that at the best quality and I could have had better out of my camera. A lot of cameras now will shoot 1080 at 60 frames per second if you don't have 4K. So shoot it at the highest ability you can there. Like I'm thinking that with I think the 80D will do 60 at 1080. So shoot at the maximum level you can in the in-camera settings. And then if you don't need that for whatever your output is, at least you can export it to lower, but always better to have the highest quality your camera can output in the beginning. Especially with video, where we're not really, on most cameras anyways, especially DSLRs, we're not shooting in RAW. So you already have some baked in settings and some compression loss already. So shoot at the best quality you can. So those are my tips for getting the best quality you can, the best quality video out of your DSLR. You might not get the same quality that you would be able to get out of an $80,000 camera, but you're going to be able to get darn close, and for YouTube, a lot of times indistinguishable. You learn your lighting, you learn your audio, and all the other tips we've talked about here, and it's more than enough. I certainly don't feel the need to own an $80,000 Arri. I guess if I was rich, it'd be nice to have one, but I don't know. This G85 Panasonic is stellar. It creates amazing video and very featured, very rich 4K. So let me know, guys, if you have any other tips to add in the comments below. Let me know if I've missed something or you want to add something. Always interested to hear your feedback. And stay tuned. We'll be right back. Today's commentary is tied into our question for the day from a viewer. So the feedback I want to discuss with you, we've got some great feedback, actually answers and gives some options to one of the viewer questions. So they're related. So I'm going to flip it around. We're going to go with the viewer question first as opposed to the commentary discussion. And so we've got Sean Jorgensen writing in a comment. He's asking a question on the video I recently did discussing Canon 80D lens options that another viewer had asked about. Sean says, I've been searching for a video like this for about a month now. I have the 80D with the 18-135 kit and the 24mm 2.8. I'm looking to get another lens. Brackets really want weather sealed for various reasons, but I'm not sure what would fit with my other two lenses. I've considered selling the 24 just because I think I'd be happier with something that would get me closer to the 50mm look, so Sigma's 30mm. Any ideas are greatly appreciated. So my first option before I get into some of the commentary and feedback we had on that previous video, which has some good options for you, the Sigma 17-50 f2.8 OS, I would take that over your 24 because it's going to cover your 24. It's still small and light. It's very good performing right across the range, and it gives you a 17-50 f2.8. So there's no need to have those primes. I don't know that you have. You haven't said you have the 50mm f1.8 STM. That is always my top recommendation to add to a kit zoom or a standard zoom in this situation with an 80D. Unless you're going to go up and spend even more money, but for the bang for the buck, the 50mm Canon 50mm f1.8 STM, I think it's about $125. You can often get it refurbed for about $100. Fantastic lens, opens up a world of possibility at f1.8. Depth of field, blown out backgrounds, bokeh, all that sort of thing. Low light shooting. Those are the two options that come to mind for me, that 50 f1.8 STM and the Sigma 17-50 f2.8. Some of our viewers had some great options and some great feedback on that as well, which will be helpful to Sean. And also, I just wanted to share with you, for those of you that were interested in different lens options for the Canon 80D or any of the other APS-C DSLRs, such as the 77D, the T6i, T7i, the 7D Mark II, any of the Canon APS-C cameras. Michael DiDomenico says, I hope I'm saying that right, I'm using the latest 16-300 from Tamron, and it is an awesome lens. So thank you for that, Michael. It's always good to hear some user experience on these lenses. Tamron 16-300, great walk-around lens. Gives you 16 at the wide end, so a little wider than your standard Canon kit lens, and 300. So, an all-in-one zoom may not be the absolute sharpest, but a lot of times you're going to be in a situation where, as a walk-around lens, you don't want to change lenses. So great option there. Wilfrey Castillo, I'll put a link below to that Tamron for you too. Anything we talk about here, I'll put the links in the description below. Wilfrey Castillo, I got the 80D with the 18-135 together with the Sigma 50mm art lens, f1.4 amazing quality pictures with the Sigma 50mm art lens. So, Wilfrey's saying he likes his 18-135, so the recommendation for that over the 18-55, but also that the Sigma 50mm art lens, which is going to be more expensive than the Canon 50mm f1.8 STM because it's a 1.4 for one thing, and it's also a higher quality lens. It's going to be sharper, it's going to have better characteristics than the 50mm f1.8 STM. So if you got the extra money, that is a great option. So thanks, Wilfrey. The Sigma 50mm f1.4 art lens, great option if you want to step up the quality from the Canon 50mm f1.8 STM. Faisal Ahmad, hey Matt, I want more sharp and blur. Currently I have 18-55 and the 50mm f1.8 with the 80D. Now what lens is best for me? Okay, well, back to Wilfrey's comment. If you want sharper and more ability to blur out your backgrounds, shallower depth of field, the 50mm f1.4 art from Sigma, it's going to do that for you. If you're talking about your zoom, then I would recommend, again, the Sigma 17-50 f2.8 OS. Fantastic lens, very sharp, and it's a 2.8 constant aperture lens, so it'll give you, your standard zoom then will have better ability to blur out your backgrounds. It'll have shallower depth of field than your variable aperture 18-55 kit lens. DS Techie. If Matt is right and he has the 18-55, he is currently not concerned about sharpness, only about range, utility, and price. I have to agree with Dunny Monster that he will enjoy 55-250 more than the other. However, later, when he compares his picks with others, he will become aware of a thing called sharpness. Most beginners at this stage want to change gear, as if changing the camera will magically transform his pictures. Brackets, 80D is already one of the excellent cameras out there. So I want to save him a step and recommend selling off the 18-55 and get the Sigma 17-70 2.8-4 DC Macro OS HSM contemporary lens at $499. This lens is sharper than all the other zooms listed here, provided one does not get a bad copy. It has decent reach for 80% of different types of work and fast enough for low light use. Can also do 1 to 3 macro, flowers, insects, etc. Later on, when he gets more ambitious, he can opt for a 70-200 f2.8, for example, the Tamron DI-VC USD, or I would add in there even the Canon. So DS Techie's got some good points there. The Sigma 17-70 is also a good option. It gives you more reach than the Sigma 17-50. It is not a constant 2.8, it's a 2.8-4, but again, it's got macro ability, and 4 is still pretty decent at the long end for that extra reach, so it's a good option. I'll put the links below, and the 70-200 f2.8, it's, if when price allows, you're going to find that really opens things up for you too. What else do we have here? We have Fabio Gomez de Carvalho Montero. I hope I've probably slaughtered that. He says, I would go with the 24mm STM, which I think is what Sean was saying he already has, 24-2.8. But that is a nice little lens. Small, it's kind of like a pancake lens. It's an STM lens and fast. And then this is Dunny's original comment, one of the earlier ones that DS Techie was talking about. If you already have the 18-55 focal range covered, it makes sense to go for the 55-250 first. I don't find that 55-250, by the way, to be unsharp. I think it's a pretty sharp lens for the money. Is it the sharpest? Probably not, but does it have sharpness problems? I would say no. I think most people on an 80D would be quite happy with it. But yeah, I've had that lens. I do like it. I think it's a good performer. I think it's just basically not a fast lens. I don't think it's not particularly sharp. I think it's just not a fast lens. It's a very variable aperture, small zoom. It's good value. So some good feedback there. Thank you very much, guys. That should help Sean out, as well as any other options you guys might want to add now for Sean on what he should buy. And thanks for your question, Sean. Thanks for all your feedback, folks. And stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.